September 13th, 2015. Deep in the foothills of Northern California, firefighters respond to what appears to be a wildfire. But somewhere inside the smoke is something they don't know yet. 3 people are dead: a father, a mother, and an 8-year-old boy. They've been shot, their bodies have been burned, and almost 100 miles away, the only surviving member of their immediate family is telling police he wasn't there. His name is Nolan Buchanan, and he's 16 years old.
And right now, a 16-year-old boy under arrest, accused of murdering 3 of his own family members whose bodies were found in a burning cabin in rural El Dorado County.
3 years later, Nolan would tell a jury something completely different. He was inside that cabin, but he wasn't the killer. His father was. The jury didn't believe him. Neither did the forensic evidence. And Nolan Buchanan was sentenced to 150 years in prison. For years, that's where the story ended. Until now. This has never been made public. Nolan Buchanan, in his own words, admitting what he did and explaining why. Before Nolan Buchanan became the 16-year-old at the center of a triple murder investigation, there was a family. His father, Adam Buchanan, ran a construction company in Valencia, California. Adam was engaged to Molly McAfee. Together, they had an 8-year-old son named Gavin. And Adam had an older son from a previous relationship, Nolan. From the outside, there were pieces of an ordinary family story: a business, a home, a vacation property in the foothills. But years later, during Nolan's sentencing, the court would hear another description of life inside the Buchanan household: a chaotic home, allegations of verbal and physical abuse, emotional abuse, and a father-son relationship that may have been considerably more complicated than outsiders understood. Those allegations don't explain what happened on September 13th, and they certainly don't excuse it. But the crime didn't begin with a burning cabin. There was history before it. And for the first time, Nolan will share his story. Friday, September 11th, 2015. The Buchanan family prepares to travel from Valencia to the rustic property near Greenwood. Investigators would eventually reconstruct this trip almost piece by piece. A truck, surveillance cameras, bank transactions, receipts, and 4 drinks from Taco Bell. The last detail would become surprisingly important. The receipt showed 4 drinks. Investigators later found evidence of 4 drink cups at the Greenwood property. 4 drinks. 4 family members. There was only one problem. Nolan would soon tell police he never made that trip. Early Sunday morning, September 13th, Adam and Molly had been out that night. Trial evidence would place them back at the property during the early morning hours. Before sunrise, Adam, Molly, and 8-year-old Gavin were dead. Each had been shot. Then came the fire. Gasoline was used. The cabin was burned, and whoever left Greenwood headed back towards Valencia. Hours later, firefighters arrived believing they were dealing with a wildfire. Instead, they discovered human remains. Eventually, investigators found evidence of gunfire, including a bullet defect and the remain of a child. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't simply an arson. Somebody had murdered a family. Police contacted 16-year-old Nolan Buchanan in Valencia. Nolan had an explanation. His father, Molly, and Gavin went to Greenwood. He stayed home. Simple. Except investigators started checking, and the physical evidence began telling a different story. Nolan described the family traveling in an older Dodge. Investigators found surveillance showing Adam preparing the white Ford F-150 for the trip. That same Ford was now back in Valencia. So, if Adam drove it to Greenwood, how did it get home? There were 4 drinks. Then Adam's bank card. Adam had used it in Greenwood. After the murders, that same card began being used in Valencia. Nolan acknowledged using it. His explanation? His father had left it with him. But with every new piece of evidence, it was making the same statement. Nolan's story didn't fit. Then investigators got another break. Property connected with Adam and Molly, and a firearm, discovered near Buchanan Construction. Investigators searched the business, and what they found added another possible dimension to the case: money. Or more accurately, the lack of it. Buchanan and Sons Construction was reportedly struggling financially. While investigators were trying to determine what happened to his family, witnesses said Nolan was already talking about what would happen next: the business, the property, the company. Molly's sister later remembered Nolan insisting that he was now the sole owner. His martial arts instructor remembered similar conversations. To investigators, it looked like a 16-year-old wasn't simply grieving his family. He was planning his future without them. This became the motive most often attached to this case: greed, control. Buchanan and Sons Construction. But the problem with reducing this story to one word was the company was reportedly in debt. And during sentencing, evidence emerged describing a deeply troubled relationship between Nolan and his father. So was this really about the construction company? Was it about abuse, control, anger, fear, resentment, or some combination that only Nolan understood? For years, there was no reliable answer because Nolan wasn't telling the truth. By 2018, Nolan Buchanan was on trial for 3 murders, and suddenly his story changed. He no longer claimed he stayed home. Now Nolan admitted he had been inside the cabin. But according to Nolan, someone else committed the murders: his father. Nolan testified that Adam shot Molly, then Gavin, and turned the weapon towards him. Nolan claimed he fought his father for the gun and killed Adam in self-defense. It was an extraordinary story. But prosecutors had something Nolan couldn't argue with: forensics. The physical evidence, particularly evidence surrounding Gavin's gunshot wound, was used to demonstrate that crucial parts of Nolan's account could not have happened the way he described them. Story number 1, I wasn't there. Gone. Story number 2, I was there, but my dad did it. The jury didn't believe that one either. On June 13, 2018, the case went to the jury. They deliberated for approximately 2 hours. 3 counts, 3 victims, 3 first-degree murder convictions. Nolen Keith Buchanan was guilty. Adam Buchanan was 38. Molly McAfee was 37. Gavin Buchanan was 8. Whatever the motive, whatever happened inside the family before September 13th, 3 people were dead, and one of them was a little boy. On July 12th, Nolan returned to court for sentencing. The judge imposed a combination of 150 years. But because Nolan committed these crimes at 16, juvenile sentencing laws meant that he could eventually receive consideration for parole. At sentencing, the judge did something important. She acknowledged both sides of Nolan Buchanan: the calculated teenager who planned, lied, and attempted to cover his tracks, and the child the court had heard lived inside an abusive and chaotic environment. Neither erased the others. There have been 2 public versions of what happened inside of that cabin. Nolan wasn't there. Then, Nolan was there, but Adam killed Molly and Gavin. Neither story survived the evidence. But there is another version. one Nolan has never publicly told like this before.
There's a lot that led up to it, and it's just, I was a 16-year-old kid, and it seems crazy, and it was crazy, and it was irrational. The thing is, right, like, my childhood was great in some ways, and it was bad in others, right? And there's nothing that happened to me that justifies anything that I did. Like, I'll be honest, like, my dad, like, he was the best dad I could ever ask for. He was loving, he was caring, he was a kind person, he was an amazing person. Was he someone who could get very angry? Yes. Right. But my dad didn't have a dad growing up. He didn't have like that role model growing up. He was always the oldest son, taking care of his two younger brothers with his mom. He was always in that position, right? My dad, he got married when he was 20 to my mom. He was just turned 21 when I was born. And within 2 months after I was born, my dad got a divorce. My mom and dad separated. And so my entire dad's life was upset now, right? Now he was a single dad with a young child, right? Living in an apartment. All his dreams, everything he wanted, right, was now like, what do you do? And he sacrificed everything for me. And my dad wanted to be a race car driver. Like, he had his racing license. He did everything. He saved up all his money. He gave up on that dream to start a construction company to be able to support me. Right. And like, growing up, like, I remember in elementary school, we had a bunch of field trips all the time. Like, we had field trips all the time, right? And my dad went to every single field trip. He was a chaperone for every single one, right? I remember I hated it as a kid. But like, that's the thing is, like, as an adult, like, I appreciate that, right? Like, my dad really did try so hard to be a great dad. And was he a helicopter parent? Absolutely. Right. Like, it's crazy. This is a true statement, right? I have more freedom today in prison than I did as a 16-year-old kid out there on the streets. And like, it sucks, but like, that's true. I couldn't go down to the store and buy something. I had thousands of dollars in my bank account. I couldn't spend it. I wasn't allowed to. Everything was micromanaged. I was never left alone. I couldn't go to the movies, or go hang out with my friends after school. I went to school, and then I worked construction full time after school, sometimes till 11 o'clock at night. And like, so I had a lot of these responsibilities as an adult. And like, that was awesome, right? Like, my dad wanted me to like be prepared for the world. He wanted me to be a functional adult. And the byproduct is he robbed me of my childhood in the process. Yeah. Right. And like, my dad was a perfectionist. And so I spent my whole life trying to meet that unrealistic standard. And like, my dad would never tell me he was proud of me, but he would tell other people he was proud of me. He just wouldn't say it to me. Mm-hmm. Like, my dad struggled with showing emotion. He taught me that men don't show emotion. And so like, while my dad was battling all these different things, right, my dad definitely had regrets. He definitely had shame for like his failures in life, right? He obviously wanted to be a better dad. He wanted all these different things in life, right? And he didn't know how to express that. It came out as, anger, sadness, right? Like he wanted me to become a race car driver. When I was about 8 years old, I got into a really bad wreck. He never let me race again, right? And my dad blamed me. Like, I remember him telling me, like, I was bad. It was my fault. In reality, like, as an adult, I understand, like, my dad was scared. Like, I almost died. And he was mad at himself, and that was taken out on me, right? That was placed on me. And so, like, I walked away from that being like, I'm not good enough. I feel like I let my dad down when my dad felt like he let me down. And we just kind of grew apart from that. Like, that was a big changing moment in our life, right? And so, yeah, just like, it was the constant, insidious, everyday stuff that over time led up to what happened, right? I mean, my dad, I loved my dad all the way up to the very end. And it wasn't even really about my dad. Really, everything, it was an argument between me and Molly, my dad's girlfriend, Molly McAfee. And it was just small things like I was a stranger in my own home, you know, like they had food and there was Nolan's food and then there was the family's food. Like I wasn't allowed to eat the same food they had, right? Like she'd buy like Kips, the flavorless cereal. That was my cereal. But then like Molly and Gavin, they had like all the name brand like Captain Crunch and stuff like that. But I wasn't allowed to eat that. They had special like you had the white bread. I wasn't allowed to eat the white bread. They had the brown healthy bread with all the seeds and stuff in it, right? Mm-hmm. Which is actually more expensive. Mm-hmm. But she knew I hated it, right? And so that was the bread I was allowed to have. And so it was just like those small things. I was never allowed to sit up front, right? I always had to sit in the back seat. It was just these small things. Like my dad never even really knew about any of that because he worked all the time. And I learned not to complain about stuff at a young age. I learned that if I just keep my mouth shut, I don't rock the boat, it will pass quicker. And so like that was really one of like the main things, is just being a stranger in my own home as a kid. Really from the age of like 10 on, like that was a pattern from 10 to 16. And over time, witnessing, experiencing like domestic violence, experiencing like verbal abuse. As I got older, I started experiencing physical abuse. My dad get angry in the shop, throwing wrenches, kicking me, stuff like that, right? Like that just kind of like sat inside me in my way of dealing with things because I didn't have an outlet. Like most of the time, I was on restriction. I couldn't watch TV. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't play video games. There was times when like my room was just a bare mattress. It's like my outlet. Like what I do is I just compartmentalize stuff. I'd box it away. I wouldn't deal with it. And I just would keep pushing, keep moving, keep distracting myself. And then when something new happens, I'd fall apart for a day or two, hack it all back in, and keep pushing. And they just kept building and building and building up until about the time when I was 16, I was scared. I was going to get in trouble, right? I snuck out. I broke into a car, or the car was unlocked, but I broke into a car, stole some stuff out of it. So I had like a bottle of alcohol. I had a bunch of money. And I had a bunch of like drug paraphernalia. I myself have never used drugs. I've never even smoked weed. I've never used, or even being in prison. But I found a bunch of syringes and much stuff. And so I was going to sell it. That was my game plan because I liked having money that my dad didn't know about because I could spend it on whatever I wanted. And Molly came out of my room, found it, took pictures of it, text me a message saying like, hey, what's all this? Accused me of being a drug addict. And my dad, when I was a freshman, found out I got having an e-cigarette at school. And when I got sent home, my dad picked me up by my throat, slammed me on the pool table, and dragged me out to the floor and choked me on the ground for having an e-cigarette. And so, like, the thought of, like, my dad ingrained in me that drugs are bad, you don't do drugs, this, that, and the other, right? So the thought of, like, him finding out that I snuck out, broke into a car, stole things, and then now the question of me being using substances, right? Like, all of that, like, I thought at 16, I couldn't see past that. I thought my life was over. And, like, that was my irrational thinking at the time. It was just all or nothing, black or white thinking, right? And for like 2 weeks, like she just kind of like held that over my head, and I was just walking on eggshells, waiting for like the other shoe to drop. Big old argument happened that Friday. She said that, hey, when we come back on Monday, I'm putting in your dad's lap. I'm letting him deal with it. And I believed her, absolutely 100%. My crazy irrational thinking, right, was, well, I'm not willing to get in trouble. I'm not willing to own up to like whether the consequence is rational or not, it doesn't matter. I'm not man up to like, hey, this is what I did, own up to it. And I was just trying to run away. I was trying to get away, and I was trying to figure out a way to make this all go away. And I went to my all or nothing thinking and extreme violence. I've been raised with violence. Violence was okay. And I came up with the conclusion, hey, I need to kill Molly. That was the irrational thought that came to my mind was, hey, that will make this all go away. Problem was that we went up to the cabin, like this was all happening, and then we're leaving, going to the cabin, and it's like, well, she's not alone. And if the whole concept is I'm trying to get away, I'm trying not to be in trouble. And so in the end, what ends up happening is in that moment, like was never like mad at Gavin, my younger brother, right? That was, at the time, I rationalized it in my own head to myself that I'm protecting him. I'm making sure he doesn't have to experience everything I experienced. Because at that point, I was battling depression. I was suicidal. I was all these different things. I didn't know any of that. I didn't understand any of that. I was also 16, going through all the hormonal craziness that 16 was going through, on top of all of this compound complex trauma I experienced over my whole life. And I had a mental breakdown. And so, like, I shot my brother. And in my head, I was justifying, I'm protecting him. He's not got to go through what I went through. I shot my dad. And at that point, like, after I shot my brother, I told the way I justified shooting my dad was it was his fault. All of this is happening, my brother being there dying, this is his fault. It's because you were so violent, you're so scary, you're so this, you're so that. You make me fear you so much, I was willing to do this. This is your fault. And that's what turned into that anger that fueled me shooting. And then when it came to Molly, this is your fault. You're the reason why my dad's dead. You're the reason why my brother's dead. You're the reason why all this is happening. This is all your fault. All I was just shifting the blame for myself, my own fucked up crazy thinking, right? My own, like, hey, this is all my fault. I created all this, right? But I didn't want that. I didn't want that responsibility. And I took it out on absolutely everyone around me. And then I ran, leaving. There was gas cans. That was the last thing. I grabbed the gas cans, set the place on fire. I thought, hey, you know what? It was just a fire. No one needs to know what happened here. And I just ran. And I didn't stop running until I was 19. I was arrested at 16. I was arrested 2 weeks later. October 1st, 2015. They came to my high school. I was a month into my junior year. And I didn't stop running then. I was in juvenile hall. I lied about what happened. Blame my dad. I'm still trying to find a way to get away, to try and escape reality, my reality. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was about 19, after I'd been found guilty, I was sentenced to 150 years to life. At that point, I knew that I was going to get a YLP hearing at my 25th year. It wasn't until I was already in prison, and that's when I finally stopped and looked in the mirror. And Scott Budnick was the first person I ever told the truth to, what really happened, right? And it was just one of those things where it's like I did this. This is what happened. Why? And I've spent the last 10 years, 8, 9, 10 years exploring that question, really. Understanding what happened that night and how could this be prevented? How could it have been prevented? What? Because I honestly believe, and that's one of the reasons why I work with YDP, the Youth Diversion Program, where they bring kids into the streets and stuff. I share my story, and that is it could have been prevented. I could have prevented it. So many people around me could have prevented it. There's so many different warning signs. There's so many things that led up to this. And at 16, I thought my whole world was over. When in reality, it wasn't. A year and a half, and I would have been an adult. There's plenty of individuals that go through what I went through, right, and don't do what I did as a result. And that's one of the things. It's just it was just so many different things that came together, and I myself was a broken person, and I didn't know how to deal with anything I was going through at the time. And that's no excuse, right? What I did was absolutely horrible. And one of the worst things is being 27 and looking back at that. And one of the big things is maturity changed my thinking a lot, just growing up, period, right? But it's just it doesn't make any sense. Why? Why did you do that? Why did you think this? So many different scenarios, leading up to that. Why would you think that was okay? Why would you say that? Why didn't you say that? Why did you do this, right? And not being able to change those things, having the answers that I didn't have that, right? And just wishing that I could do things differently. One of the best ways to describe it is when you have all those nightmares, and you wake up and you're oh, thank goodness that was just a dream, because that was terrible, right? And that's kind of the way it is, but you don't wake up from it, right? And it's just man, it sucks. It sucks a lot. And I've harmed so many different people, and the impact that I've had is monstrous. You know, when you look at the ripple effect of all the different people that were affected in so many different ways. And, you know, like all I can do now is just try and give back and make a dent in the harm that I've caused. And I'll never be able to like balance that scale. I'll never be able to undo all the harm that I did at such a young age. But yeah, and it's just one of those things where it sucks. And again, like, it doesn't make sense. I tell people that it doesn't make sense what I did. It never will. The only person it will make sense to is that 16-year-old I was at that time.
For the first time, the question isn't whether Nolan was there. He says he was. The question becomes why. Nolan was 16 when he committed these murders. Today he's an adult. The California justice system will eventually ask a question very different from the one the jury answered. Not, did he do it, but who has he become since?
Hi, brother. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Jeff.
I like your haircut. Looks good.
You're crazy,
right?
Thank you.
Been pretty long. Excuse me on the tier. This time I have a special guest by the name of Nolan Buchanan, a good friend of mine, and in some ways I consider him a little brother. We first met while we were serving time at Ironwood. Welcome to Excuse Me on the Tier, brother. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Right. I know you probably introduced yourself to the guests already, but could you maybe tell them how we met, some of the things that we were participating in, and how that went when we served time together?
Yeah, so we met on B Yard, on the little 3 yard in Ironwood. The first time I met you, James. We were in the day room at night doing a voluntary Gogi group. It was a Gogi power up group, sitting on the floor by the tower, right over in the corners next to the phone. And we had been doing the Gogi group for a couple weeks, and then and you came over to the yard. And I remember you showed up and you had all this different Gogi stuff because you had your Gogi box that they tried taking from you one time, and you like refused to give it up. You're like, I'll send it all home. I'll pay $300 to do it. You had your little Gogi, you had the little chain and all the behavior chain or whatever it was, right? But yeah, I remember you were known as Gogi James. Like other guys had known you, like Billy knew you. I think Noe had already known you. Manny. But yeah, they were like, yeah, it's Gogi James. And I remember like when I first met you, I actually didn't like you, right? Because you came over and you like do all this Gogi stuff. And like I just started, you know, like they just talked me into coming over here doing this, right? And I was like, all right. And so being younger, because I was like 19 when we met, I was more territorial and defensive still, right? With the whole young man thinking. I was like, this guy just came in here and wants to take over what we got going on here. And I did not like that, right? But yeah, and over time, right? Like we used to beat. You used to beat all the time.
I remember.
I got into beating with like you and Kenny Hale. Kenny Hale gave me a bunch of beating stuff, and you were all into flings, rings, and things. And so yeah, just being in the day room, being hummingbirds and rings and all different types of things like that. And yeah, then we did ACA together, and like ACA was one of the most impactful groups I've ever done. Like that was like changed the course of a lot of my thinking in my life, especially at that young age. Yeah, like that was a group that made me realize, hey, you know what? I'm not alone. I'm like, look, all this different stuff. It's in a book. They wrote a book about me, and that completely like changed my life right there. Just that little realizing that interaction, right? And yeah, like we spent quite a few years living right there in the same building, same little section, right? Yeah.
What about the time we were in the hip hop class?
Yep, yeah, and we did the little dancing hip hop house dance class at night. It was like to dinner all the way to like 9 o'clock at night. I remember at that time I had so many groups. I was gone for myself from like 6 in the morning. I didn't get back till 9 at night because of that group. That was like that nighttime shot. Yeah, we were dancing around, break dance, all that stuff. Definitely an interesting experience inside.
Nolan's got moves, bro. Nolan's got moves. Yeah. So man, and so you've grown up a lot since then. And
no longer the 16-year-old kid that was arrested. No longer the 19-year-old man that you met. I'm 27 now, and I'm 11 years into my sentence now. Since we met, I worked my way down to a level 2. If I wasn't hard 19, I'd have 0 points.
Congratulations. Good.
I graduated valedictorian from YOP Seeking Safety. I graduated valedictorian from YOP Club. Since then, I've facilitated a bunch of different things. I became a YOP mentor. I was the youngest YOP mentor for a while here. At the age of 25, I became a YOP primary for my building at the age of 26. I was accepted in the OMCP program at the age of 26. I've since graduated the program. I'm now a SUD RC1. Just had to finish my internship hours, and then I'll become certified. I'm almost done with my advanced relapse prevention specialist certification through the Gorski model. And now I'm a mentor. I work with YLPs. I work with the youth diversion program. They bring in kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, part of the program. Sit down, talks with them, try to figure out what's going on in their lives, help them set up goals to successfully navigate whatever they're struggling with or going through at the time. Right? That's my life. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor.
When was the last time you threaded a needle? Do you still bleed?
What?
Do you still bleed?
What?
You still bleed?
It's been a while. Last time I beaded anything, I want to say it was probably about 9 months ago. I actually chipped my tooth a little bit on the needle. It's been like a year or two since I beaded, right? And I tried beading something real quick. It was just as frustrating as I remember it being. I always joked around that, I feel like the board, they really want to see if someone's changed or not. They should make them beat a hummingbird and tell them they only have 2 hours to do it or they don't go home. And it doesn't matter if they finish it or not. You just get to see, the real character come out. Are they able to manage the situation, cope with it, handle their emotions, or are they going to freak out and throw it across the room?
Right. Man, you've grown so much, bro. I'm really proud of the man that you've become today and you continue to become. And I look forward to circling up with you every week and giving you a platform to let's help put some change back in the world, bro. I feel privileged to have you on the channel, and I can't wait to introduce you to the world and let you speak for yourself. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to keep on talking with you, James, and go on this little journey with you.
This is a poem I wrote about a year and a half ago. The subject was the word dream. I figured you would like it. The silent plea of a ghost who dared to dream. I feel the warmth from these walls that have socked up thousands of dreams. Of ghosts who have outlived their life and perceive hope as a disease. To dream is a selfish want, fit for the living and not for me. I once wished nothing more than to be remembered, to be heard, to be seen. But just as the validity of my trauma, I crave suppression and regressing. In the dark, lost and alone, I forgot how to dream.
just as all the ones I've loved faded to blurry faces. My dreams began to fade until one by one they left me. If I could dream a dream that these walls could not take from me,
Would it be for peace from a past I lost, or the future I no longer see? Would it be for love that neither my house nor home has ever held? Would it be for freedom from these dreamless nights that so haunt me? For better or worse, to have a dream is to invite hope, which allows fear to creep in like a shadow through the cell door. I dream of one day being something more than a ghost, haunting all those I've hurt from beyond a cage, hidden away from the world. And I fear being nothing more. I fear having nothing more than just a dream.